Welcome back, everyone. Our next presenter is ILUS International. It trades on the OTC Pink sheets under the symbol ILUS and is a public M&A investment company operating out of New York, London, and Dubai, focused on adding shareholder value through innovation and growth. Please welcome its managing director, John Paul Backwell. Welcome, John Paul.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Ryan, for the invite. Thank you to the Emerging Growth Conference for having me. I trust you can all hear me clearly and see my slides. So if there's any issues, please shout. As introduced, my name is John Paul Backwell. I'm the Managing Director at ILUS International. And the aim for today is to really showcase our company and our technologies to potentially new investors. So I'm going to be taking you through an overview of the company, and I'll tell you a bit about the who, the why, and the how in terms of what we do, what's special about us, and I trust that you'll find it a useful time. So just in terms of getting started, I'll ask a couple of questions, and that will help you determine whether the next 30 minutes is for you or not. So number one, are you interested in learning more about a public safety technology company with patented disruptive technology that makes communities safer and saves lives? Number two, are you interested in a company which is already delivering exponential growth and is also positioned to respond to increased international emergency response and defense requirements? And would you like to know more about a company that not only owns firefighting technology that can extinguish multiple classes of fires, including electricity fires, the likes of which you see with Teslas and that today, with water only, but also has multiple innovative solutions for combating wildfires and several disaster types. So if you've answered yes to any of those questions, I assume that you would enjoy and find the next 30 minutes quite interesting. So without any further ado, let me get into it. In terms of what we're seeing in the world today, I mean, current events, our company really couldn't be more appropriate at a time like this. Issues such as war, urbanization, climate change, we're facing a multitude of threats. And at the same time as all this is going on, governments and organizations are under increased pressure. They have reduced budgets, and technology has been aging for many, many years. So at the same time as that's going on, we all expect instant solutions. We used to pressing a button and downloading a movie instantly. So we live in this era where everything is instant, and that puts a heightened pressure on emergency responders, on governments, on organizations to improve their response times. You know, if we dial 911, we expect an ambulance to arrive well within 10 minutes. If we expect a law enforcement to arrive well within 4 minutes. So we have this expectation that everything should be instant. And so that's where we as ILUS come in. Our answer is disruptive technology primarily, and it's based around firefighting solutions, wildfire technology, defense solutions, rapid response vehicles, autonomous vehicles, virtual reality technology. And I'll explain a bit more how all of these different types of solutions link in to what some people, you might be thinking, well, you're just a firefighting company, or you're just a company that makes fire trucks. We're far more than that, and I look forward to showing a bit more about that over the next few minutes. So just very briefly who we are. We're a public mergers and acquisitions company, as introduced. We trade under the ticker ILUS. We are primarily focused on acquiring and growing public safety companies and adding shareholder value in the process of doing that. We specialize in life-saving technology, products and software for safer communities and for protecting frontline personnel and those who serve. So that's our passion. That's what we're about. That's what we stand for. And all of our technology always kind of comes back to that, if I can put it that way. Our administrative locations are in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, in the UK, in London, and also we are currently moving our New York offices down to Boca Raton in Florida. The little gray dots that you can see on the screen, hopefully, are current acquisitions, and there's a circle there in Southeastern Europe. I'll talk to you briefly more about that shortly. So our current management team, I won't spend too much time here. I don't have a huge amount of time. So just to say, we have a wealth of experience on our team. We also have some youth, some energy, some passion, and we're obviously growing this team as we move along. So what have we done so far? We took over from the previous ILUS management in January 2020, and since then we've completed 7 acquisitions. So I'm sure you'll agree that that's a decent achievement in a short space of time. In 11 months, in 2021, in those 11 months, we generated over $14 million in revenue. And more importantly for us as ILUS management, we laid a solid foundation in that we acquired manufacturing and distribution capability in the US market to add to that which we already had. In terms of projections, we're expecting to do a minimum of $45 million in revenue this year. And I call that run rate revenue because obviously the revenue is going to continually increase as the year goes on. So by the end of the year, we should have achieved a minimum of $45 million in revenue. And that's a conservative forecast from our perspective. We obviously always like to deliver on what we communicate. So we're expecting to acquire a number of large manufacturing sites in Southeastern Europe with millions of dollars of government subsidies as parts of those acquisitions. I'll talk to you briefly about that shortly. And we are obviously always aiming to make or complete 2 to 3 acquisitions per quarter. We're more or less on track to have been doing that, and obviously we're growing our team to increase that rate, so to speak. And then we've also spoken previously about plans to uplist to bigger boards. Our acquisition strategy, simply, we've mentioned this to our shareholders a number of times, is to acquire manufacturing capabilities, it's to acquire routes to markets, and it's to acquire technological advancements. And to a large extent, we've been doing that already. Manufacturing capabilities, we look to acquire companies which manufacture technology in the public safety space that are generating revenue, that are profitable. We look to acquire distributors and resellers of technology where we can add our technology to the existing channel. And we look to acquire companies which have exciting, innovative, disruptive technology that can fit into our portfolio and obviously speed up or add to what we're doing. And just to add to that, this really illustrates more or less our strategy. ILUS, if you think of ILUS as the funnel at the top, ILUS is constantly acquiring and growing assets. And then we are creating divisions, or we have created divisions, an emergency response division, a fire protection division, an integrated systems division, a renewables, sustainable energy division, and a newly created defense division. ILUS itself, if you can think of it, dare I say it, as like a vacuum cleaner. It's sucking up the assets, it's growing those assets, it's constantly increasing its balance sheet, it's a constantly growing company. And then there's the opportunity for divisions to potentially uplist to bigger boards. So, apologies, let me click back there. So in terms of acquisitions that we have already completed, in the first 2 quarters of last year, we acquired 3 companies: Firebug, the Vehicle Converters, or TVC as it's known, and BCD Fire. And I'll just explain a little bit briefly about each of those. Firebug itself is a manufacturer of firefighting equipment and firefighting technology, which is all based around its very innovative and patented water mist technology. Just to say very briefly, what is that? What does that mean to the average investor? Probably not much at this stage. But if you think about firefighting in the current era, conventional technology typically states that you throw a whole lot of water onto a fire, or a whole lot of a specific chemical or a powder onto a specific type of fire. What Firebug has developed is water mist technology, low pressure water mist technology, which is capable of extinguishing multiple classes of fires, pretty much all classes of fires with water only. So that's essentially normally unheard of, and it's certainly not conventional technology. What does that actually also mean? It means that you can extinguish fires with significantly less water, up to 80% less water. So if we take the example of a car fire, you could extinguish a car fire in less than 30 seconds, typically with as little as 26 gallons of water. You can have less people to extinguish that fire. You can use a small rapid response vehicle to extinguish the fire. So ultimately, the water mist technology offers increased firefighter safety. It offers reduced water consumption. It obviously then translates to rapid response vehicles, quicker response, ability to respond quicker to incidents in congested areas and the like. So again, won't spend too much time on that, but the company manufactures a wide range of vehicles from small to large. I'm going to just flick through these slides just to give you an idea, a bit of a feel for the actual Firebug family, so to speak, and the equipment, the factories, the facilities, etc. So it's a great company. As I said, it was our first acquisition, and the bottom right is one of our flagship products, our Mismax pump on a electric vehicle, which we have developed ourselves, a commercial electric utility vehicle. Moving on to the vehicle converters, a Middle Eastern company, which has quite a wealth, quite a rich portfolio of clients. I'll get to that shortly. They primarily convert ambulances, including armored ambulances. So as you can imagine, we're getting a lot of requirements these days for these vehicles. They also convert military vehicles. They convert vehicles for security, for law enforcement. They do everything, even the likes of food trucks. So a great company, very versatile for us. We can use them for a wide range of purposes. And as I said, they're getting an influx of requirements at the moment. They've previously even supplied US Army bases in the Middle East, customers like BP, Emirates, Dubai Police, etc. So then there's BCD Fire, who many of our shareholders may know, a company which has been great for us in terms of revenue generation. They've got a number of large contracts in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, including Burj 2020, which is the world's largest commercial tower. It will be when complete, and they're installing the fire alarm systems and fire safety systems for the whole of that building now. So they're a fire protection, fire alarm system, fire evacuation or evacuation system installer in the Middle East that we're working on growing quite substantially. Additional companies we've acquired in the USA. We recently acquired a company called Bullhead Products. I'll flick over to the next slide just to illustrate. They're an aluminium truck bed manufacturer. They also make the likes of firefighting brush trucks, so you can imagine why that company has been very important to us to get going in the United States. They're going to be manufacturing our rapid response vehicles, and they're also going to be assembling our commercial electric utility vehicles in the United States. So we've bought them with a very, very specific strategy in mind, and they're a great company with a lot of potential. We've also acquired a distributor, Georgia Fire and Rescue Supply, obviously in the state of Georgia, and they have exclusive distribution for a wide range of products, including Holmatro, which is the world's largest vehicle extrication brand, so for rescuing people from vehicles in simple terms. So a wide range of products, including for wildfires, and they sell their technology or their products across the United States and even further afield than that. So that's Georgia Fire and Rescue Supply, a company which we're in the process of completing literally as we speak, the acquisition of, and is Precision Powered Products. I'm allowed to mention them, and they manufacture, they're a specialist firefighting pump manufacturer in short. They supply currently primarily the oil and gas industry. They've got customers like Anadarko, Shell, BP, etc. And we're obviously acquiring them for the purpose of manufacturing our firefighting equipment, our firefighting pumps, and some of our fixed system fire protection products. So that's Precision Powered Products. We've also made a number of technology acquisitions. Forgive me, guys, if I'm really just flying through this very quickly. I want to get through and give the opportunity for some questions towards the end. So we've acquired a company called VIRA Drones. They are a German and Swiss company. They manufacture industrial unmanned aerial vehicles, primarily focused on the rescue, logistics, and also now the military sectors. And in short, their technology is a world first in that it delivers the unmanned capability of light helicopters. So these are heavy industrial drones. They're not your typical drone that you would see even transporting Amazon parcels. It's far, far more than that, these drones. Let me click over to some images to give you a better idea. This is the rescue drone, the M450. This drone can carry 500 kilograms. They have drones that can carry up to 1,000 kilograms and fly for as long as 2 hours, 120 minutes. So obviously replacing potentially the capability of light helicopters down the line. We have got flying as a service models in store for them and lots of exciting things planned for them. A company like this, some technically competitive companies in the flying taxi space, you can look them up. If you Google flying taxis, unmanned taxis, you'll see that a number of these companies have achieved valuations of well over $1 billion, and that's without having any flying prototypes yet. So a very exciting company for us to have acquired. They have developed smaller flying prototypes. They're currently in the process of developing 3 large rescue drones. We've just commissioned that, and they're also in the process of negotiating some pretty large pre-orders for their rescue drones. They'll be exhibiting at an event in June in Germany, a large event called Interschutz, and they'll be showcasing their new large rescue drone there. And then there's some other shows planned for them for the US, the UK, and Europe as well towards the back end of the year. Let me move on to KURVEXR, a technology acquisition we made also at the beginning of this year. KURVEXR is a virtual reality training software company. It focuses on fire safety training, fire protection training, first aid, staff onboarding, and similar specialist modules. It also creates bespoke custom modules for military users and more. So if you think of things like bomb disposal is one area where it's developing software and things like that. It has customers in 7 countries, hotels, retail outlets, etc. And we've obviously acquired them for the purpose of further developing them. They obviously complement what we're doing in the fields of fire safety training, etc. So I won't spend too much time here for the sake of time. This gives you an idea of what the interface looks like for a user and for management to check in on what users are doing. If you can imagine, users typically would sit in a classroom. So if you think of a large hotel which has got thousands of staff, the staff as they join the company or at regular intervals would need to do, for example, first aid training, if we just use that example on a regular basis. Typically they would sit in a room of 30 people. A trainer would come in and train them. They wouldn't necessarily, especially under current COVID circumstances and things like that, get the opportunity to actually do much practical training. Replacing this with virtual reality training is far more beneficial, and a lot of companies are already moving across to switching over to that kind of technology. It's far more cost effective. The users themselves, the trainees, gain a lot more experience, which they're able to use in the real world as a result. If you think of, just moving over here to this type of training, internal bleeding, eye wounds, there's practical training for that, and more importantly, closer to home for us, fire extinguisher training, learning about the different classes of fires, the types of extinguishers to use in the event of fire. So you can imagine large demand for this technology, and it's a company we're looking to grow quite rapidly over the next couple of months and years. We also have very important technology partnerships. I'll mention one, the likes of Millennium, which develops and manufactures intelligent unmanned ground, sea, and aerial vehicles. Their vehicles, obviously, what we're using them for is for autonomous firefighting vehicles. But what we've seen is that there's been a number of requirements for mixed capability vehicles, and that's where we're focusing our attention at the moment. As you can imagine, an important company in times like the ones we're facing at the moment. So we'll start to see, I think, Millennium coming more to the fore in terms of what we're doing as well. We also have a technology partnership with a New York-based company called 911 Inform, and they develop communication and crisis management software. So incident management software, but very, very innovative. We would say it's game changing. And we've got an exclusive OEM license to sell their software outside the US. So we do that exclusively, and we can also sell it in the US. You'll start to see there's some large projects that we're working on in the space in Dubai and in Singapore and places like that. So we'll start to mention more about that as we sink more into that technology ourselves. So in terms of the European acquisitions that we've spoken about for the shareholders that are with us, what I can say at the moment is that we're in the process of completing a first phase acquisition in Southeastern Europe. Unfortunately, I still can't say where it is, but it's, I suppose, fairly obvious. It's the acquisition of a 650,000 plus square foot manufacturing site. It's a large number of warehouses where we're going to focus really on manufacturing our commercial electric utility vehicles, as well as OEM component parts under contract for electric vehicle companies and suppliers to electric vehicle companies. We'll be starting with 75 staff, quickly scaling up to 150 staff in year one, and then further scaling that up to 1,500 staff, possibly more over 3 years. We're obtaining millions of dollars in government subsidies in this first phase acquisition. So it's obviously very important for us in terms of scaling up our manufacturing capability. There's a lot more that we're doing at that site than just the commercial electric utility vehicles. We'll be manufacturing some of the VIRA drones there and some other technologies there too. So that's phase one. We'll be announcing that, dare I say, imminently in the next couple of days, possibly worst case weeks. The second phase acquisition is a privatization deal of a large government manufacturing facility in Southeastern Europe, and the facility currently manufactures military vehicles. We'll be adding to those production lines the manufacture of firefighting vehicles, of ambulances, specialized vehicle conversions, and then some of the own more innovative lightweight military transportation vehicles that we ourselves are developing. That deal will include manufacturing contracts of various types. I will simply say for the emergency response industry at this stage, because that's where the discussions have been taking place. And staff-wise, it'll be well over 1,500 staff. So moving quickly on from that, that one, apologies if you haven't actually seen the slide. That second phase acquisition, we will announce early in the second half of the year, all going well, unless anything drastically changes in that regard. As I said, I've said previously, or we've spoken about previously in press releases, etc., these deals have been approved. We're simply going through government paperwork at the moment in order to complete, and we will only announce the first phase deal when the ILUS flag is flying on the site, once we have been able to move into the site. Moving on to just further acquisitions, just to say very briefly here that we have signed a number of LOIs with companies in the US and further afield. So we'll be announcing acquisitions steadily according to that run rate that I mentioned previously. We also have we're in the process of conducting due diligence on a acquisition that has revenues well in excess of $100 million. It's a large firefighting equipment distributor. It's a global name. We are a small company, and I can hear some brains spinning around. Just to say that this deal would be completed as part of an uplisting. I can't unfortunately say more than that at the moment, and we would announce it in conjunction with an uplisting. We wouldn't be able to announce it before then. So, however, I can say that we are conducting due diligence on that company. Then we also have a number of other acquisitions in discussion. And as you can see, some of them larger, some are more run rate type acquisitions. And we're always working to complete, which is why I said the $45 million revenue could well be very conservative for this year. Then just to revert back to the slide I mentioned earlier, as I said, ILUS is constantly acquiring companies and we're creating these divisions. And just to illustrate that a little bit further, if you just take the emergency response technologies division within ILUS, huge global market value, over $10 billion a year, and we are forecasting a company valuation of $500 million plus. So I'm not going to talk too much about firebuck safety and the renewable energy, but just to illustrate how that all looks, how it fits together, how we see it, how we're building it, and then furthermore, VIRA drones, a huge global market value, and we're forecasting a company valuation for that company of over $1 billion within the next year, because we're spending a huge amount of money and a huge amount of time focusing a huge amount of effort on that company for very specific and obvious reasons. Likewise, KURVEXR has potential in the newly formed defense division. You can look out for more very big announcements coming soon in regard to the defense side of things. We've been working on that for some time. And then just finally, I'd like to mention the ILUS coin before we start moving towards questions. The ILUS coin it currently trades on various exchanges. You can see them below. But that was ultimately born out of our concern for governments and communities that remain vulnerable due to a lack of funds. They don't have the upfront capital to be able to purchase rescue equipment, which is obviously something that we're passionate about. It's what we got into this business for. And so we recognize the need to raise funds for them to purchase leasing equipment. whilst at the same time creating a profitable business for our investors, for ILUS coin holders, so to speak. And so that's how the ILUS coin was founded. In short, the revenue from coin sales helps the coin to be able to buy life-saving equipment from ILUS. So it's a bonus that it's of benefit to ILUS as well. And the equipment is then leased to vulnerable communities. We're in discussions with a few at the moment in the likes of Madagascar, etc., so that they can afford to obviously, purchase and have life-saving equipment, whether it's whole matro rescue equipment or firefighting pumps, firefighting nozzles, etc. So that's the ILUS coin. If you're interested, get involved. Coinbase, PancakeSwap, LA Token, etc. So finally, let me conclude. You've probably heard enough from me for now. Why would you want to invest in ILUS? Number one, I would say we do already own, and we continue to acquire businesses which possess disruptive life-saving technology, and that's very important. We've been delivering. We've acquired 7 companies in 13 months, and we have several more LOIs signed. I'd like to think that we have a dynamic and experienced and transparent management team. I think that's always been a focus of ours. I think we've got a pretty good management team. For me, that's an important reason. And finally, I'd like to say we're certainly primed for growth in sectors which are currently and should remain in very high demand. So that is it from me. I believe I've taken a little bit more than 20 minutes. So Ryan, Emerging Growth Team, is it possible for you to fire some questions at me?
Yes, thank you, John Paul. We do have lots of questions for you, but we don't have a lot of time. Let's try to get 1 or 2 in. From Dexter Hale, he says, I see the CEO's preferred shares as a deterrent for potential investors, particularly regarding their potential effect on the fully diluted OS, should they ever be converted. I know that the CEO has advised that he has no intention of converting his. Would he consider moving these preferred shares into a new category of preferred shares that retains voting rights without allowing for conversion? And this would remove the potential risk of a fully diluted OS of over 35 billion shares, which understandably puts some potential investors off. How can you answer that?
That's a good question, albeit a long one. I'll try to keep my answers short because I think there's only time for 2, or 2 or 3. But so firstly, there's only 2 billion shares authorized, right? I think it's important for people to understand that we've got no intention of increasing the authorized shares at any time in the foreseeable future, or hopefully ever. There's currently in the region of 1.2 billion shares out. So before I even discuss Nick's shares, the CEO's shares, I think it's important for everyone to also understand that Nick is an affiliate of the company. So he and any other affiliates of the company, like myself, like Louise, our COO, are highly regulated by the SEC in terms of what we can and can't do. And so I think this is something that many institutional investors would likely understand, but certainly not something that the shorts would want to understand or would even remember if you told them, because it's highly inconvenient for them. But under SEC guidelines, Nick cannot just sell shares whenever he wants to. He just physically couldn't. So I think it's important that people think that through, because often they'll just see the large number of shares when converted and think that's a risk, whilst larger investors understand the regulations and really aren't concerned about this at all, which is why we have such an interest in our business in terms of funding. But regarding Nick's shares, regarding the CEO's shares, I'm sure that if he ever did want to convert them, he'd be willing to sign a leak-out clause to not allow him to convert too much shares too quickly. And also, I've known Nick for years. I've worked with him for a long time. I'm one of his closest friends. And I know for sure that for him like me, this is a destination company. Our intention is to build this company into a conglomerate like Berkshire Hathaway or GE or United Technologies or similar over the next 10 to 15 years. So I know for sure he's got no interest in selling those shares for a long time. It's his future wealth and generational wealth for him and his family as well. But more importantly, leak out clause and the ability to be able to sell those shares just willy-nilly is not really possible.
All right, John Paul, let's do one more question quickly. Babu Adhikari asks, when will ILUS be listed on the NASDAQ, and why should investors invest in ILUS?
Sure. So in terms of when ILUS itself would be uplisted on the NASDAQ, that could be any time from 6 months to 2 years from now. I mean, look, I can't even say 2 years or guarantee that, simply because ultimately we have other plans, other uplistings planned. I can't. Well, strictly speaking, I'm in a silent period at the moment, so I'm not actually allowed to discuss those themselves. But ILUS itself could potentially uplist within a year or two, or possibly even sooner. In terms of why invest in ILUS, I think I've mentioned that before, a number of points in terms of what we've delivered, in terms of acquisitions that we've already completed, in terms of our technology, the disruptive technology, the life-saving capability of it. It is technology that's actually making a difference, so you can personally relate to it as a shareholder as well. And we have I think a good team. And as I said, we technically do what we say we're going to do, and we remain transparent about that.
All right. Well, please join us again with some updates. We have tons of questions for you, but we are out of time. So join us again, and thank you so much for your time with us today, Jean-Paul.
Thanks very much. Appreciate your time.
Okay, everyone, stay with us as we transition to the next presenter. We're coming right back.